Hi, everybody. Nick Davis here, Nicholas D. Davis. Um, uh, I've had a demand to restart my From Pen to Paper series, so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. Um, First of all, I'd like to say thank you for all the prayers and nice, kind thoughts that everybody's been giving me about Nancy, my wife. She's had a condition for the last month and a half, and she's fighting it, and an infection, and she's still fighting it, and she's on medication, and she's at the rehab place now, trying to recover from it. And this year is going to be a rough year for me. To start out, I may not get to a lot of Comic-Cons this year. It all depends on how things go with my wife and how much care she's going to need once she gets out of there and stuff. So tonight we'll be talking about writing for and about the other gender. Now, most authors, when they write, they have male and female characters. So the only exception to that might be like a story about a military prison, or sorority or fraternity or anything like that. Might be an exception to that rule. But the one thing you got to know when you're writing about genders is you got to know the type of story that you're going to write. Different stories appeal to different genders. Like romance novels are mostly women. I suppose there are a few men who get into them, but for the most part, they're a woman type thing, and they can be written by either gender. I mean, a man can write a woman's story, a woman can write a man's story, but it has an element of romance and things like that. So, science fiction and fantasy and military novels are mostly men, written for men, but they can appeal to both. I mean, I have a lot of science fiction fans that are women that get into my stories and like them. So, I mean, that could be universal. It could be man or woman, but usually they tend to flock towards the men, tend to like the sci-fi better than the women. Then they have the adventure action type books. They can appeal to anybody. It depends on the story, what it's about. If it's about a kidnapping or a terrorist attack or anything like that, can appeal to anybody. Mystery suspense is the same way. I know authors that are male mystery suspense authors, and I know female mystery suspense authors, and they all seem to write in that fashion, is appealing to both sexes. Horror can also appeal to both, but usually that's kind of a man thing too. But there's a lot of women out there like horror as well. So you have to excuse my voice. I'm a little hoarse tonight, but so anyways, that's and that could go. There are other genres, lots of other genres. Historical can appeal to either. You can have a woman writing historical. You can have a man writing historical, or appealing to them. But the important thing about writing it for the other gender is write about what you know. So, female, you have you have your brothers, you have your father, your male mentor figures, your boyfriend, your husband. How do they think? Get inside their head and see how they would react to a certain situation. And that might give you a better perspective of the other sex and how what they go through or what they don't go through. Just think like if your brother, suppose you got a flat tire on the highway, how would you handle that, and how would your brother handle that? There's two different ways that you would handle it. I mean, my sister would probably call. She would probably call AAA. My brother Tim might get out and change it himself. It just depends on how you look at it. Male, the same way. How does your sister, your mother, your mentors, your girlfriend, or your wife, how do they think? You get inside their head. Like how does your wife react to you leaving her a sink full of dirty dishes or something like that? How does she react to that? And if it was the other way around, how would you react to that? And stuff like that. So some common traits in man and women. I got a feeling this isn't going to be a very long session, to be honest with you, because there's only so much you can say about this stuff. And some common traits in men and women are fear, and both men and women have fear. Men and women experience and react to fear differently and deal with it differently. In both sexes, one may face the dangers head on or run away. Women try to work towards a peaceful resolution, while men like to have a hands-on approach. And that's true in emergency situations, like if your boat died, how would you, well, that's not a good example, because it's like that they're talking about like a conflict. If there's a conflict, women tend to work towards finding the solution for the conflict, whereas men, it's like, you threaten me, I threaten you, and then it just goes on and on and on. That's the way it's been, like with presidents forever. Okay, so that's one of the traits. Another trait is anger. Women don't express their anger as much as men do, but are more likely to suppress their anger and direct it towards themselves, whereas men tend to express it vocally and physically. And a lot of this stuff I looked up, so there is some basis behind it. Okay, some scientific basis behind it. And what that's saying is women, they like to keep the anger inside them, whereas men express it more both vocally and physically. Okay, and where are we? Oh, joy and excitement. Now, joy and excitement. Women tend to get more excited than men and have more positive emotions than men. So women tend to be more excited about, like, say, a wedding than a man would be. Or, men like weddings, but we're like, whatever you want, That's the way we are most of the time. So, and depression. Women tend to be twice as depressed as men. I don't know if that's totally true, but I mean, it depends on the situation. But women do tend to get to cry more when there's a bad situation or something like that, and they tend to be more compassionate towards other people than men do sometimes. Men can be cold and mean to other people sometimes. And that's true. One of the things you have to do when you're writing about genders is to avoid stereotypes and generalizations. Trying to make a heroine tough because she's surrounded by men or vice versa. As a woman, she has a sensitive side and feminine feelings as well. Even if she is a tough woman, there's a sensitive side to her. And man's the same way. a man is masculine, but there are some feminine traits in men too. You know, they can be soft, they can be kind, you know, if they want to be. And a couple examples of that is, even if it, you know, it's these are kind of like stereotypes in a way, but even if a guy is gay, he may still like football. You know what I mean? So not all gay guys are, you know, not, you know, don't have anything to do with sports, and vice versa. That could be true with sports. Not all football guys aren't gay. There may be some gay people in there, and I'm just using these as examples. I'm not trying to pick on the gay people or transsexuals or anything like that. But that is part of gender. You know, nowadays it is part of gender. So, okay, so we'll move on. And not all women or men fit into a certain gender type. We are all diversified in our degrees of love, compassion, physical and mental well-being, and so on. You know, we all have our soft side and our tough side. I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, and women and men are more alike in some ways than they are apart. And that's true with the other vice versa. There are things that keep us apart because we're so far divided on them that man and woman will never come to the middle because we're on both ends. It's kind of like the Democrats and the Republicans, you know. Same thing. Okay. So, how do I write as another gender? Well, the first step is to put yourself in the character's place. Okay, if you're gonna put yourself in the character's place, whether it's a man or a woman, and if they're the opposite gender of you, how do you think your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, or husband or wife would handle that situation? Use this to determine how your character may react. So, if you say I have a woman character, which I do in a couple of my books. I have this one in my new book that I have coming out in probably later May or early June. I'm working on it. It's going to be a long one. It's the last one of the Joe Garkey series, last one of the fantasy series. But in the series, she is almost raped by these two guys. And she's tied down, and they're going to rape her on the bed, and in walks the captain with a blunderbuss and shoots one of the guys. So before the other guy can get to finish what he was doing, she manages to get the one arm loose, and she takes her sword and lops his finger off. Okay, and so she even though she was in a vulnerable position, she found the strength within her to fight back, and that's, you know, even with a little help, but she still fought back, and that's you know, that's how she reacted. So and so that's how they would handle that situation, something like that. And, you know, how would your sister handle that? How would your mother handle that? How would your girlfriend handle that situation if they were in that situation? Okay? But you got to remember, too, your girlfriend may not be anything like your characters. I mean, your characters may be totally different than how your girlfriend would react, but you would think of it from a woman's perspective. Okay? Create test situations and ask another sex how they might handle them as related to your story. So you can take like something you're going to write with somebody you know and just say, if you were in my character's position, how would you handle this? You know, like say you were robbed. How would you handle it if you've been robbed? How would you deal with that? And that gives you kind of an insight too of how the opposite sex might think about that. You can ask a fellow author how he or she writes her characters or his characters when they are the opposite sex. How do they write their characters? Do they write them gritty? Do they write them strong? Do they write them weak? How does their character deal with their situations? Okay, and you can also sit on a group of female or male writers to gain perspective. So, like, say you have a romance writers guild somewhere, and you're a male, so they don't usually have women. They don't usually have women at that type of thing. They might, but if you do, maybe you could ask to be a guest there, or ask to listen in to gain a perspective of how women think about romance and how they write it, stuff like that. That's another perspective you could do. You could also have someone of the opposite sex review your book before you publish it to see if it's believable in the opposite sex's eyes. Does this woman seem too shallow? Does she seem too tough? Does the guy seem like he's a brute? Or something like that, So, and when you're writing for women, writing for another gender rather, look into what publishers are looking for in novels. Like, if you're writing for women, read some of the romance novels and some of the romance magazines, and try to find out what they're looking for, and what type of manuscripts are they looking for? Are they looking for mostly sex? Are they looking for like erotica? Are they looking for more of a romance type thing where sex is only suggested? Things like that. Like in my books, I don't really get into sex too much. I just kind of give the assumption that that's what they did or how they did that, whatever. But and also you can read whatever audience you are looking into to tap into, see what the trends are. So what's selling at the time? What's out there selling that's going to be what the trends are. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit unfocused tonight, but what the trends are in the publishing agencies. Are they selling more romance novels? Are they selling more historical novels? What are they selling, and who are they appealing to? Are they appealing to men? Are they appealing to women? Are they appealing to everybody? That's what you got to look into. Okay? And if you're trying to write for the opposite sex, don't try to get too graphic or offensive unless the genre calls for it. You're in control. You can write however you want to write. But usually, if it's not like an erotic book, you don't need to get into a lot of erotica. You just get into, a little bit of sex and that's it. You don't need to, you don't need to go into the graphics of every time they have sex, you could describe it down to the T, unless you're writing that type of stuff, Okay. So, finally, a main character written by the opposite sex must be believable to the opposite sex. So, anything you write, you have to, be believable to the person's who's reading it. If you're writing a romance novel and you're a woman, you gotta believe whether it's what you want or not, in a book. So, bi, gay, transsexual, stuff like these. These are relatively new areas of fiction and require much more thought than they deal with mixed emotions and a lifestyle out of the normal boundaries of man and women in marriage. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. That's up to whoever. But they're harder to write because unless you're in that situation, you don't really know how they feel. You got to kind of guess how they feel, or you got to talk to somebody who's been in that situation, how they feel about it. If you decide to write in these areas, please be sensitive to the people you're writing for they may be struggling with some of the feelings of uncertainty and acceptance as the characters you're writing about. So, that's basically it. You have to, take that in consideration when you're writing about those people that they have feelings too, and everybody's in this together. Right? Nobody's going to leave. When you die in this earth, you're going to be buried next to somebody you may not like, or whatever. But that's the way it is. I mean, that's just the way it is. You have to deal with it. So that's all I have for tonight. Next week I'm going to be talking about making the makings of a good plot. So we'll be talking about plot structure and subplots and stuff like that, and we'll be talking about climaxes and stuff like that. And this year I will be attending Heroes and Villains Con. I've already booked that, and I will be attending AnchorCon. Those are the two that I've already booked so far. I'm looking forward to doing some other shows. I was thinking about the one in Waterloo possibly, although last year was kind of a dud with that, so I don't know if I'm going to do that one or not. But I did the Marcellus one last year, and it went very well, so I may do that one again. And Rochester's out this year. I don't think I'm going to do Rochester. The cost is just too high for me for that one, and there's a couple others that are pretty high too. I may do Conklin Con yet. I haven't decided yet, but I do have to decide soon because it's in June. So, but a lot of those I'm going to have trouble with, because I don't know what the future is going to hold with Nance. So, hopefully, I haven't did an update on her today. Today, she was coherent, but she was hallucinating again. So, she was seeing, things that weren't there and stuff like that again. So, and I'm hoping this medicine that she's taken will eventually get rid of that, but only time will tell with that. So, but keep her in your prayers, and keep me in your prayers, and I'll see you next week with another edition of From Pen to Paper. Till then, I'm Nicholas T. Davis, author of the science fiction series Dimension Lapse and the fantasy series Barbara Linden and Joe Gartby. And we'll see you next week at 8 o'clock on Monday night. Good night, everybody.